Welcome back, water and land enthusiasts. Today, we're going to make a terrace along a slope to help stabilize the slope. So, let's get started. Terracing is an awesome way to slow water down and create growing spaces on a slope. This slope was shedding water quickly in rainstorms and channeling along the asphalt driveway in a little stream, causing erosion along the driveway. By making small terraces horizontally from the driveway, we are able to divert the water along the slope instead of down the slope. The water is slowed enough to sink into the ground, hydrating the area. The surface of the terrace also enables a growing space to plant trees and vegetation. With trees and vegetation on these terraces, they will further stabilize the slope through their root systems and the microorganisms. First, we went around our property looking for places where erosion was happening when it rained. This spot was our most pressing erosion, so we chose to work on this area first. We went out multiple times during rainstorms, especially when the rain was coming down pretty hard, to observe how the water was flowing. Because of the curve of the driveway, sometimes as we drive our vehicles, we drift off the asphalt onto the side of the driveway right where the water is flowing, which also contributes to the erosion. As we planned what we would do to stop the erosion, we kept this in mind. Small terraces seemed the perfect fit for this area. We really don't need a lot of access on the terraces other than a footpath for harvesting from later on. The tools we used are a shovel, a rake, and a level. We also used wood chips to cover the terraces. Other materials we'll use in a later video will be propagated perennial starts, shade-tolerant and deer-resistant wildflower seeds, and bare root trees. To start a terrace, we dug into the slopes, scooping out a shovelful of dirt and putting it on the downhill side, creating a flat growing surface. We dug along almost on contour, but just slightly downhill off contour so that the water could flow horizontally along the terrace. We continued shoveling along horizontally, slightly off contour, and continued putting the dirt on the downhill side until we reached the end of where we wanted the terrace. Then, using a rake, we leveled the terrace somewhat from the back to the front of the terrace so the water could gently flow off of the front of the terrace in a big rain event. To see how the water was going to flow along the terrace, we filled a bucket with water and poured it at the edge of the terrace at the driveway edge. The water flowed nice and slow along the terrace, so we're good to continue on making the terraces. We went down the slope about 1 to 2 feet to start a new terrace, following the same technique as the first terrace, scooping a shovel full of dirt on the uphill side and putting the scoop of dirt on the downhill side. We worked from the top of the slope to the bottom of the slope, but working from the bottom of the slope to the top of the slope works as well. Our terraces are small. The terrace is about 2 to 3 feet wide and about 1 to 2 feet apart on the slope. Our slope was a little wider than a 45-degree angle, so we made small terraces to make sure there would be no problem with the mudslide. The steeper the hillside, the shallower and smaller the terraces need to be. That way, if we received a really big rainstorm, the water would soak horizontally into the ground along the terrace and also off the front of the terrace, thereby preventing a mudslide. We will be able to hold all the water we need without holding too much water, which could cause the hillside to become unstable. By making these terraces slightly off contour, we can divert water that was running down the edge of the driveway back onto the slope so that we now have water in an area that was pretty dry, making it a great place now to plant trees and vegetation. We continued the terracing until we reached the grass, which is also where the erosion stopped. We covered the terraces with wood chips to help hold the soil and to feed the microorganisms in the soil. The wood chips and the microorganisms hold water and soil, which lessens erosion, as while making the terraces perfect for growing in. The wood chips and microorganisms hold the water and soil, lessening erosion. The terraces are also perfect for growing on. Bare soil contributes to topsoil removal and erosion. Soil should always be covered with organic matter and vegetation. One of the many functions of weeds is to cover bare soil. That's why where there is bare soil, weeds tend to grow so that the soil can be covered. If you don't want weeds, provide the functions weeds are filling and they won't grow. We wanted different vegetation than our weeds, so we'll provide that function by covering the area in wood chips and then planting vegetation. Watch for an upcoming video on how we planted the terraces with propagated vegetation, wildflower seeds, and bare root trees. Eventually, the terraces will be so full of vegetation that the wood chips are no longer visible. We had our first hard rainstorm and the terraces held up fantastic. No erosion is happening. The water soaked in along the terrace instead of running down the slope along the driveway. This is the morning after a 2-day rain event of torrential rains. Wood chips and rain stayed on the terraces, sinking into the ground. It's working great. We will continue to monitor the terracing as we get rainstorms to see how it does and see if there are any areas that need more diversion to slow the water, spread the water, and sink the water. A terrace is a great way to utilize rainwater that otherwise runs off, divert rainwater that is causing erosion, create a growing bed for trees and vegetation, and provide an aesthetically pleasing look as well. We hope this video inspires you to find somewhere on your property where you can slow the water, spread the water, and sink the water so that you can rehydrate your property. Until next time, happy harvesting.